Hola mi gente, welcome back to 90 Days of Spanish. This is day 2. On this video, we're going to be learning techniques, how to keep a diary in Spanish to help you improve, and how to talk about yourself in Spanish. If you're new here, my name is Edward. I've been teaching languages for over 10 years. When I first started, I could only speak Spanish, my native language. Now I speak 4 languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, and Polish. And on this channel, I like to share all the lessons I've learned so you can do it too. Let's get started with day number 2. So first, we're going to be talking about how to keep a diary, or rather why you should keep a diary. What does it really mean? What I mean by keep a diary in Spanish is basically that. You're going to get yourself a little book. It could be, and ideally that would be better, if you use the same notebook that you're using for keeping progress of your Spanish, of your vocabulary, your grammar points, etc. All the things that you're learning. Ideally, you have all of these in one same notebook where you keep everything together there. So it's easy to access, it's easy to always have it all there, and you can always just refer to it whenever you need to study. If you are a very organized person and you prefer to have it in separate books, separate notebooks, you can do that as well. So what are you going to do with it? Well, at a rate that you choose, I would advise 2 days a week, twice a week, basically, where you're going to be writing down what you've been up to, what you've done, but in Spanish, of course. Now, obviously, there will be a lot of things that you might not know how to say, and that's kind of like the point. The point is that you're not going to be simply just writing on a translator or writing on whatever you use to help you find your words in Spanish. Don't write the whole sentence of what you want to say in English and then have it translated for you in Spanish. That doesn't work. That's not as useful, because that would lead to you more easily forgetting, right? When you just do that, when you just simply write the whole thing and then have it translated for you, you might write it down, you might try to study it, try to remember it, try to refer to it, but because you didn't go through the process of figuring it out, of building the sentence yourself, the neurological paths, the way in which your brain is going to put these things together is not going to be as deeply embedded in your brain. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to later on remember having learned how to say that, but not being able to recall how to say it in Spanish, right? And this is a very common problem. Has this ever happened to you? Because this happened to me many times in my learning languages process. It's a very common problem. And the reason for that is because we haven't built enough connections with what we're trying to learn. So we just remember the process of going through the moves, through the motions, but not really being able to recall the thing itself, the words that we want, the words that we need, right? So how are you going to do that? Well, just as I said, you're going to start writing down the sentence as much as you can in Spanish. Write as much of it as you possibly can in Spanish, and then leave the gaps, the things in between that you don't know, that you're not sure. Leave those as gaps and spaces. Then go and find out individually what each one of those words is, how to say those words. Ask for a few examples of those words, how to use them in sentences. This is another use for AI. You can ask AI for, hey, give me some example sentences with these words. Right? It'll give you some example sentences, and that's going to help your memory process be more in depth. It just simply will be easier for your brain to later on recall this information, because there is more connection to it in your head, if that makes any sense, right? So that's what you're going to do. Now, you write down the sentence. Once you've completed the sentence of what you actually wanted to say, let's say, for example, that you're talking about how you went shopping with your friends that day. So then you say, ayer fui de compras con mis, and then let's say you don't know how to say friends, right? You don't know what the word for friends is. So then you look it up. And it's going to tell you amigos or amigas. Amigos for men, amigas for women, and usually amigos for if it's both, if the group is mixed, right? You now have that word. You now know the word. You're going to write down the word in your sentence, and you're going to complete the whole thing. Ayer fui de compras con mis amigos or con mis amigas. Then you're going to write down the examples. Ideally, you write another example of your own using that new word, because now you have more than one single reference point for the same word. And that's how it all works. That's how the brain will be able to later on get back to it and be like, oh yeah, this thing I remember, right? That's how that works. How often do you do this? Like I said, twice a week, I would say. If you want to do it more often, of course, the more the better. If you do it every day, that would be amazing. That would be ideal. Now, I do like to be realistic. about some of these goals. I myself personally really struggle with consistency, so I know that sometimes you just might not be able to do it. You just might not have the time or bring yourself to do it every single day. But if you can, well, that's amazing. Okay, so that's how that works. That's how you keep a diary. So are you keeping a diary in Spanish? If you are, how's it going? And if you're not, why not? Maybe you should start now. Let me know in the comments what's holding you back. Or if you already are keeping one, let me know how it's going, right? Let's continue. So now, for point number 2, the main topic of today's video is going to be how to talk about yourself. We're going to be covering a few things like your job, your career, where you're from, what are your hobbies, what do you like, etc, etc. So let's get started. Well, first we want to say our name. Mi nombre es Eduardo. Mi nombre es Eduardo. There are a few ways in which you can say your name. You could say mi nombre es, that's like the most formal one. You could say me llamo Eduardo, or the most casual would be soy Eduardo. Now, how do you say your profession, your job? Obviously, this is going to vary. There's lots of professions out there. I'll give you a few examples. I would say personally, soy profesor. Soy profesor. Careful with the fact that we use the verb to be ser, right? We have 2 verb to be's in Spanish, right? You probably already have seen this. You've already run into this. If you haven't yet, well, the verb to be in Spanish translates to 2 different verbs, 2 separate verbs. Ser, estar. Ser is for more long-term things. Let's just put it like that. Ser is for things that are more permanent. Estar is for things that are more likely to change. So usually when we talk about our profession, since it's something that tends to stay the same way for a long time, we would say soy profesor. Right, so in my case, yo soy profesor. So we can put it together. Hola, me llamo Eduardo y soy profesor. Let's talk about some other professions. Some common professions we can have. And if I don't say yours, let me know in the comments what is your profession. If you know it in Spanish, let us know. If you don't know it in Spanish, you can ask and I'll let you know what your profession is in Spanish. So let's say a few more. Let's say I also work as a waiter. So I could say soy camarero. Soy camarero. If it would be a woman, soy camarera. You could also say that I'm a barista because I also make coffees at the coffee shop where I work. So that one, very easy because it's a loan word. So you just say soy barista. That one's very easy. And there is no difference between male or female. Barista, soy barista, whether you're a man or a woman talking, soy barista is the same thing. ¿Qué más podemos decir? What if you are a chef? If you're a chef, soy chef. Or soy cocinero. Soy cocinera. If you're a cook, right? You could say a cook or a chef. So, soy cocinero, soy cocinera, or soy chef. Same word. Again, it's a loan word. Loan words have this magic, this beauty that you don't have to go and learn another word. You already know it from English in Spanish. We also call them, some of them are also called mirror words, right? They have the same meaning. They mirror the meaning from one language to the other. Sometimes, well, mirror words are more like the ones that are similar enough, like intelligent, inteligente, right? That's a mirror word. Chef and barista, those are loan words. That's why they're pronounced pretty much the same, spelled the same way in both languages, because they're not originally from English. So that's why they're the same. But yeah, they're very useful. This is mini tip in here, in the middle of this video. Learn mirror words. That is super useful when you're learning Spanish, when you're trying to build up your vocabulary. Mirror words are going to be your friend. Okay, so that's for professions. Now, a few more personal information. What about your age? Tengo 32 años. So, myself. Tengo 32 años. I am 32 years old. Now, careful. In Spanish, we don't say I am 32 years old. We don't say soy 32 años. No. I've seen that mistake. It's very common to make that mistake as a beginner, but we don't say that. We say tengo, which is the verb to have. So in a sense, in Spanish, we don't say we are our age, we say we have our age, right? It's just the way it is. So we use the verb tengo, tener. Yo tengo, or tengo, 32 años. Right, there you go. So you just need to know what the number is for your age, and you can use it. Tengo, then the number, años. Okay, now what about nationality? What about where you're from? Well, I'm from Costa Rica, so I would say soy de Costa Rica. So once again, the verb to be, ser. Soy de Costa Rica. What about you? Where are you from? Let me know in the comments. Now let's talk a little bit about what you like to do. I really enjoy cooking, so I would say Me gusta mucho cocinar. Me gusta mucho cocinar. Me gusta, I like. Gusta comes from gustar, which is the verb to like, to enjoy something, to like. Me gusta, we need to put me at the front because it's a reflexive verb. There's a very special kind of verbs in Spanish that are called reflexives, and this one is one of them, so it requires me, which refers to me. Me gusta. You don't say gusta, just that. You don't say yo gusta. We don't say that. We say me gusta. Okay? Always. We always need a reflexive pronoun in front of the reflexive verbs so that it makes sense. Who is talking? Who is saying who the verb refers to, right? So me gusta, I like, mucho, a lot, or very much, cocinar, to cook, right? Because we have me gusta at the beginning, which is a verb, the second verb, cocinar, we don't need to conjugate it. So we keep it in its infinitive form or in its original form, which is cocinar, right? If I was to conjugate cocinar for myself, I would say yo cocino, I cook. But when we have it in the sentence, I like, me gusta, it's already a second verb. And the first one, we already conjugated, so we don't need to conjugate a second time, right? That's a very important special thing when we're building a sentence in Spanish. We don't double conjugate the verbs. If you already conjugated the first one, the second one stays in its infinitive form. So me gusta cocinar. There you go. And finally, I want to know, what would you like to say when you introduce yourself? When you talk about yourself? What would be a part of your self-introduction that I haven't mentioned in this video? Let me know, leave a comment down below and I'll reply to you how to say that in Spanish, because, I could sit here all day and tell you all kinds of different things about myself, but maybe they're not related to what you want to say about yourself. So let me know down below in the comments and I'll tell you how to say that in Spanish. So that will be day number 2. Don't forget, we are doing 90 days of Spanish. This is day number 2. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. Nos vemos la próxima.